All right, welcome everyone. It is so exciting for us at Enroot to have the company of so many amazing, talented folks at Google. Thank you for joining us for Career Week. This is a week that every year we plan out to give our students or expose our students to a number of different careers, career options, potential internship opportunities, and as a time when they can reflect on their identities and what value they could bring to a workplace for life after high school and beyond. So we're so glad that you're here joining us. So for this panel, we're going to begin by asking each of you to share your names, pronouns, your current role at Google, and what you studied in college. So we can start, anyone can go, and all I ask is that you then pass it on to one of your colleagues. And when we wrap up, then I'll start asking the questions. So we can get started. I will nominate who's like next in my screen, Alan, to begin.
Hello. My name is Alan. My pronouns are he, him. I've been at Google for about 4.5 years. I came to Google right out of college, where I studied computer science, and I am now a software engineer working on Google Maps on Android.
Thank you. You want to pass it over to one of your colleagues? You can nominate anyone.
Now the question is, which of these people are my colleagues and which ones are students?
Well, I'll help you. I'll nominate
Thank you.
Aaron. Aaron, are you good to go? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. Hello, I'm Aaron Pollock, pronouns he, him. I've been at Google for combined 4 years now, and right now I'm working on the hotels team. So if you've ever typed into Google search hotels in Boston, for example, you get that list of hotels. My team's part of, well, the group of engineers that are involved in making that happen. So I've been a software engineer on that team for a couple of years now. And in college, I studied computer science and economics.
Thank you.
I'm also going to turn it back over to you to nominate the next person.
Okay, I nominate Chi-Chi.
Thanks, Rose. My name is Chi-Chi, pronouns she, her. I work on the news product at Google. So if you see news when you're searching for something in Google, that's something that our team has worked on, or use the news app. My background is a little unique. I'm not an engineer. I was a journalist for a good part of my career, and I majored in journalism in college. And about 6 years ago, I joined an experimental team at Google, where my team is a bunch of industry experts, all former journalists, and we work with product and engineers on the product. So you don't have to be a software engineer to work here.
Awesome, thank you. And I'll pass it over to Karine.
Hi, I'm Karine. Pronouns are she, her. I'm a software engineer at Google, and I have been here for about 4 years, and I'm working currently on a team called Quick Labs, which does technology and cloud education. Yeah.
Thank you. And Chitan?
Hi, I'm Chetan Ahuja. I'm a software engineer. I've been at Google for a little under 2 years, and I work on the Google Assistant. I did my bachelor's in information technology and then a master's in computer science. So that's me.
Thank you, Chitan. And Taylor.
Hi, everybody. My name is Taylor Himlasane. I am based out of Google's Cambridge office, but right now in Sunnyvale on a work trip. I work within our procurement org in finance on transformation as a change manager, and which just is a bunch of words, but I can explain what that actually means as we get into it a little later. And I've been at Google for 5.5 years. So happy to be. Oh, and I studied marketing in school.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you, everyone, for your introductions. Students know who I am, but I'll just introduce myself too. My name is Paula. I am the Cambridge Program Director here at Enroot, and I am your moderator for today. So I will be asking our panelists some questions. All right, so the first question, and this can be up for grabs, anyone that wishes to answer, is what are some myths about working at Google?
I'm happy to kick us off in saying that one myth that I believed until I started working here was that you had to be an engineer or study something in STEM to get a job at Google. Like I said, my undergraduate degree is in marketing, and I did a minor in design. And I did not know that Google had roles for people like me until I saw a recruiter come to my school of business, and she was a Black woman with an afro who looked like me, and I had never seen a Googler look like me. And then study things. I think she had a degree in communications, and I was like, oh, I can see myself in you. So something that I think people don't know is that you don't have to be in a technical role to have a role in tech.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Taylor. That is definitely a myth that I think a lot of people have. So thank you for breaking that up for us. Anyone else want to share another myth that you believed before joining Google and that now you've realized is a bit different than from what you had thought?
I can share another myth that had to do with the culture of Google. Before working here, I'd been told that it was this really intense, super competitive, really, intense environment. And of course, the work and the people, they're incredibly smart, they're great people. And the thing that I've found so striking when I started working here is just how much of a spirit of camaraderie you encounter with your colleagues. And I regard, working with the people here at Google as one of the best parts of working at Google. The people here are great and the culture here is great. And that was, that was very different from what I had been told prior to applying or prior to starting to work here. And
thank you, Aaron. That is really helpful to know. And now that we see all of you, we can see that you're all very nice and approachable people. So it's good for our students also to realize that. Great, so I'm going to ask another question and one or two of you can answer this one. So what skills did you overlook when you were younger that you find useful now? Such as maybe speaking a different language or being able to adapt to different situations. But what is something that maybe you appreciate much more than you did when you were in high school, for example?
I think one skill that I definitely neglected in high school and honestly didn't pay enough attention to in college is written communication. Like in high school and college, people will tell you like, oh, you need to learn how to write a good email. And it's like very easy to just be like, I know how to write an email. You just like write some stuff down and it's fine. But then you start working and you realize how much communication like is done over email and how important it is to be able to clearly and concisely express what you've been doing, the status of things, these fairly large, complex topics in just a few sentences, because your readers are often people who are only going to read that email and that's all they're going to know. So you need to be able to express everything you want them to know in a way that they're going to understand it. And email is asynchronous. You're not having a conversation. So if they want clarification, that's a lot more time that adds to the conversation. So being able to include all the relevant information in a clear way is really important.
Thank you, Alan. That's super helpful. Anyone else? Anything you want to add, Karine?
For me, I would say that I was thinking about entering a technical field, which I currently am in. So I worried a lot about like my math skills or that kind of thing. But what I didn't give weight to, which has really helped me in my career, I think, is like my skills at in empathy and being empathetic, because I feel like no matter what career you're in, being able to work with other people and understand other people of different backgrounds and perspectives has really made me not only work well with different coworkers, but also think about different users for the product that I'm building, because obviously it will be used by different kinds of people. And so that has been, I think, really helpful in my career too.
I love that. Thank you.
One more I'd like to add is the value of being organized. There are limits to how much information you can process in any given day. So if there's stuff you don't have to think about because you're more organized, that frees up cycles to do other things, more things. So write stuff down, keep it like a bullet journal, use your calendar, use the tools available to you to organize your life so that you don't have to think about it constantly.
Thank you so much. That is one that I can adopt to even my own life, because it's true. There's only so much information we can absorb in a given day. And I'm sure students experience that every day taking multiple classes. So being organized is critical. So thank you. All three of those are super helpful. So the next question I have is, what challenges have you had to overcome to get to where you are now? And this one might require a bit of introspection, so you can take a moment.
I can go.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start with this answer. So Chinese was my first language. I didn't speak English. And it was really, really hard for me immigrating to this country. My parents, I think back now to kind of the things that I wish I had growing up, right? The network that I've built and I've had to build ever since college and onward, none of that was influenced my family or anyone I knew. Like I kind of had to start from scratch. So touching on like your earlier question, I wish I had started building that earlier in life. It was partly because I didn't know how, and I also didn't feel empowered to. We had very little when I was growing up. My mom was a doctor in China, and when we moved to the US, she actually had to give that up. And we lived in the basement of this nursing home. Her job was to cook and clean the nursing home. So going from being a doctor to doing that, it was really hard to watch her do that. But because of the experience growing up and seeing how much my parents struggled, my dad was doing a fellowship at the local college, but this was in Utah. But he was a custodian on the weekends to make ends meet for our family. And so I saw how hard they worked, and it really inspired me. But at the same time, it was really hard for me as well, because I had to do everything on my own. I had to do like all the research on scholarships, because I couldn't count on them to help. And I didn't know where to look. And so just navigating all of that was really, really hard growing up. I think in a lot of ways, so I have 2 kids now, and I feel like, gosh, I wish I could like help them suffer a little bit, because I feel like that made me stronger in kind of navigating that and trying to find my own way, making me a more resilient person, and also being more resourceful and creative, and never taking no for an answer, applying to hundreds of jobs before I got one, or internships, or anything, any kind of opportunity, chasing people down, things like that. Just really that persistence and that grit.
Thank you so much, Chichi, for that vulnerability with us. I can tell you that all of our students as immigrant youth relate to some piece of your story. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's very inspirational to all of us.
Um, I can go next.
Yeah.
So I also emigrated to the US, but I immigrated after my undergraduate degree. So I essentially moved here by myself. So I essentially went from being a kid in India to an adult in the US. And so learning to live by myself, becoming an adult in a new country, is moving to a new country was all pretty challenging. And it was hard. It wasn't the technical stuff like becoming an engineer wasn't as hard as making sure you went to bed on time and woke up on time and reached that meeting. So and I didn't have a great start to my career as a result. I in fact lost my job. I had to forgive myself for screwing up things. I had to understand why I lost my job. I had to learn from it. And the things I knew about myself, eh, I had to take a good look at myself. I had picked up bad habits. I had to unlearn the wrong things. I had to learn how to forgive myself for not living up to my expectations, my family's expectations, for failing at things, and then try to do better anyways on the next day. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you for sharing that and for that really beautiful reminder to forgive ourselves. I mean, there's going to be so many obstacles in our lives and things are not going to go as planned. But at the end of the day, I think self-forgiveness, allowing ourselves to pick ourselves back up and move forward, it's a wonderful reminder. Thank you for that. Anyone else want to share one more? So I'll move on to this one's maybe kind of similar, but a little different. What advice would you give to your high school self?
I'd say one piece of advice I would give to my high school self is to make a point of seeking out challenges, like seeking out challenges for yourself that seem meaningful and seem interesting. And I've discovered that, in life, those are the places where growth happens. Those are the things that, to me at least, are the most interesting parts of life. Those, seeking out a challenge, either you succeed or you don't succeed. And if you don't succeed, well, then you have an opportunity to grow. You have an opportunity to change. And that's something that I think as a high school student in particular, I hadn't really understood or hadn't really at least believed in myself so much. So if I were to give myself a piece of advice from that time in life, it would be to seek out challenge.
I love that.
On sort of a related note, the advice I would give myself is to trust my own instincts more. So one of the things that Aaron was talking about was seek out challenge and believe that you'll be able to come through it. And I think that's important. And part of that is trusting the stuff you know. You're good at the stuff you're good at. And being able to have that confidence and act on it and try to do the things you think you can do is really important to let yourself grow and to help you realize both the things you're capable of and the things you're not capable of. But you're not going to, even when you find things you're not capable of, you need to be able to trust yourself that you'll be able to get through whatever situation that is anyway. You won't crash and burn, and your life won't end, and the world won't end. It'll be okay. You'll be able to make it through. You have, the skills and the ability to do that.
It's a great reminder, Alan. Thank you.
One more that I'd like to add is, if I could go back and give advice to my high school self, it'd be that you're going to screw up. And even when you don't screw up, you're going to feel like you're screwing up. So you kind of have to try to get used to that feeling. You need to confront it or learn from it, or both. But most importantly, you can't let the fear of making a mistake paralyze you or scare you into doing nothing. Because let me tell you, even when you feel like saying, all right, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to try and mess this up, that will also feel like screwing up. So, sometimes the only way out is through, right? So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
I want to share real quick. Sorry, this popped in my head because of what Chetan was saying. Trevor Noah gave a talk at Google a while ago, and one of the things he said is, don't be afraid of failing, because if you're trying to do something that hasn't been done, then you already live in the world where you failed. The thing you want to do isn't done. So there's no harm in trying, because the worst that happens is you're back where you started. And I thought that was really good, powerful advice that speaks to something that I think all three of us talked about, of you have to be willing to try to do things and figure out if you can do them.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that, Alan. I think both Taylor and Chichi wanted to share as well. So either one of you can go.
Go ahead, Taylor. I just wanted to ask something really quick. So one of my favorite speakers that's spoken at Google, who just changed everything for me, was Michelle Obama. And she said, when she was talking, it was, I think, International Women's Day, and she was saying, everyone needs a board. And the intention behind what she said was, we can't go it alone. There is no way we can be successful on our own. And I'm going to tell you the number of times in any given situation where, even at Google, when I've had a really rough day and I'm like, that's it, I'm out of here. I go to my mentor. She's an engineer here in the office, and she actually didn't go to college. She's amazing, amazing, and talks some sense into me. But I didn't really realize the power of that until probably around college. It's hard, I think, if you start, like, I understand how hard it is, because I didn't know how to build a network. I didn't know how to find a mentor. And, my parents didn't give me any guidance there. But if you're here, you're already like 10 light years ahead. If you're in this session, you have us. Rose and Lee Hwan have our contact info. Like, you have great mentors already. Yeah, if you find people that you connect with along the way, keep them close to you, and they'll be the ones that watch out for you and guide you. As that's something I've learned along the way, and I wish I had started cultivating earlier.
Thank you, Chichi. I love this question, so I'm gonna volunteer Taylor and Karine to also share a little piece of advice, anything that comes to mind. I just think this piece is so rich for our students.
Yeah, I'm happy to share next. I think I love everything that's been said. And one thing that really stands out for me is I was bullied in high school. People were not nice to me. I was different. And that really did a toll on my confidence. And I used to compare myself to everyone else and say, oh, if I was like that, or if I had that, or, they have more money than my family, or whatever it is. And I wish I could go back and tell that version of me that comparing myself to other kids at that age or even other adults at my age now is not productive and is not helpful. And like everything about you, whether it's something you love or something you hate, is intentional, and it's something that you should embrace and learn to love what you have versus comparing yourself to other people or trying to be like other people. Whoever you are, however you show up in the world today is enough. And I didn't have that sense of confidence and that awareness when I was younger. And it's hard. A lot of adults still don't have that awareness, right? And you can easily fall back into the habit of comparing yourself to other people and their job, their promotion, whatever, their house. But I don't think that that's a very helpful way to live. And I think Alan and Aaron both shared these comments around taking risks and doing things that challenge you and scare you, and it's very hard to do that if you're not confident in yourself and your ability to bounce back even if you don't do a good job. So I would go back and tell young Taylor that she's enough. It doesn't matter what other people say. Comparing myself to them is not going to get me any further in life, and to focus on my journey and what I'm supposed to do in the world with what I have and not what other people are doing.
Oh, thank you, Taylor. That's a beautiful reminder for all of us. And Corinne, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like in terms of building confidence, like it's easy to say like be confident, but it's so hard to actually be confident, especially if you come from certain circumstances that made you doubt yourself. And so I'd say that a piece of advice maybe I would wish I had is to actually practice being confident. And so part of that for me looks like not apologizing. So, don't say like, oh, sorry, I have a question. Like, don't apologize for asking questions. Don't apologize for asking for help. And just, don't apologize for taking up space in a room or having a voice or having an opinion. And that's partly how I think I have learned how to build that level of confidence.
Thank you so much. That's so helpful. Thank you all for all that wisdom. I'm gonna bottle it all up and keep it with me, because I really appreciate the level of just wisdom and vulnerability that you have shared with us today. So jumping gears a little bit, or switching gears a little bit, I should say, what is the best piece of advice you received about finding a job?
I can share. One of my mentors is a VP at Google, and anytime I come to him with a decision about shouldn't I, he always says, you don't have a choice right now because you haven't applied. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And so when finding a job, especially as people from backgrounds that maybe are underrepresented historically in some of these spaces, it's easy to say, oh, well, I need more skills, or I don't have that, or I shouldn't apply because of fill in the blank. But instead, trying your best to shut out that like negative voice and just try. What's the worst that could happen? You're in the same position that you are right now. But in finding a job and really landing a job, you eliminate yourself from all of the opportunities that you don't even apply to. So don't do that, and be willing to take a risk and just apply. The worst that could happen is you get some feedback on why you weren't a good candidate, and you can show up better for the next job that you apply for.
That's a great reminder. Thank you, Taylor. Anyone else? Alan?
I sort of echoing off of that, always apply to jobs, even if you don't think you'll get it, even if, there can be a million reasons not to, but all the companies I'm aware of, just because you applied and got rejected, they don't just take all of your information and like throw it in a garbage can. Google keeps that. And once you've kind of applied once and they have your contact information, they'll follow up. And if they think you're a good fit for something, they'll send you an email. So I have a friend who I referred to Google over a year ago, and she didn't get the job that she interviewed for then, but just recently a recruiter reached out and said, hey, we think you would be, we have your resume from a year ago. We think you might be a good fit for this role at YouTube. Can you send me an updated resume and schedule some time to talk? And I think, that wouldn't have happened if she hadn't tried to apply over a year ago. So there's value in applying even if you don't get the job, even if you don't get any feedback, even if you never hear back, like getting your name out there, getting your resume and contact information into that company's database is useful and can pay off way down the line.
Thank you. That's a great anecdote too. Thanks, Alan.
I think one thing to keep in mind now that I'm reflecting on how I became a journalist is there's more than one way to go about something. And thinking back to good advice, but also thinking about advice, thinking back to, this is kind of a negative spin of like bad advice too. So when I first, so in college, I fell in love with journalism and I was like, I want to be a journalist. And so like every professor I had was basically telling me there's this one path you have to take. You start at a really small town paper and then, you know, some podunk daily thing, not like just, it's, I think I applied to like I don't remember what it was, but it was a couple of very small community papers. And then you move your way up to medium-sized papers and then larger papers if you'd like. Anyway, my goal was I wanted to work abroad. I wanted to be a foreign correspondent. And that was the path I was told by everyone that I had to take. And that's what I thought my entire like time in college, until I did an internship at the Denver Post. And I had a great mentor there. And we sat, I remember it like it was yesterday. We sat down for lunch. She's like, what are you doing? Like, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, well, I just want to like go to China and write stories. And she's like, well, just go then. I didn't know it. I honestly did not know anyone out there. Like I had family in central China, but in the big cities where there were like big news organizations, I didn't have any family. And what she said to me, I was like, okay, no, that's ridiculous. That's not the path you're supposed to take. But then after she said that, I started researching. I sent emails to every single bureau chief in China, and one responded to me. It was the editor-in-chief of Time magazine in Hong Kong. And she's like, yeah, sure, we have internships. You want one? And it just never dawned on me that I could do that. That sounds so stupid now, but really I thought there was only one path. So I think that's probably the best advice was Lisa Kennedy. She changed my whole trajectory, I think.
Wow, I love that story, Chi. And that reminder, we all think there is one path to become something. And it's true, we really have the ability to just do anything and call ourselves anything and ask for the right help to make it happen. So I love that. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Any other tips? Well, I have another question that is similar, but a theme that I have heard all throughout our conversation so far is the fact that many of you have mentioned your mentors. And I just think having a mentor is just such a valuable, just sort of piece in anyone's career. Enroot students all get a mentor from the community that serve a number of different purposes, from potential career connections, but also for social emotional support. And that is why we are big advocates for mentorship. So my question is, how did you go about finding the right mentor? And what advice would you give any of our students to how to rely on a mentor? Like, how do you find a mentor? How do you build a relationship with a mentor that then can lead you to someone that can provide support, advice, anything that you might need in the future? And whether this is you as a mentor yourself or by being mentored by someone else.
As I'm sitting here thinking about this question, trying to think about what's the common theme for how I found the mentors that I found in my life, I'm realizing that there is no common theme, and maybe that's the answer to the question. Going off of some sentiment that was expressed, in the past questions, there's not just one way to find a mentor, and I've been surprised at the places where I've found mentorship, and I found that I find, the best mentors are often found in places that I wouldn't expect.
Thank you, Aaron. That's a good reminder.
I would say for me, one of the things that I actually didn't really know about was the idea of a sponsor. So mentor being someone who, can guide you and give you advice, but a sponsor being someone who will advocate for you when it matters and where it matters. And so for me, actually finding a sponsor, which was someone in my team who was more senior than me and who could help speak for me to whether it's a promotion committee or whether it's to senior engineers on the team, so that I would have good opportunity for, career advancement and growth. That was super important. And that looks like, finding someone who's directly involved in your day-to-day work, who can be that sponsor for you.
Thank you, Karine. I love that distinction, mentor and sponsor. That's great. Anyone else want to share just about your experience with mentoring?
I'd like to say something, and this runs a bit counter to everyone else's experience, perhaps, but nevertheless, I think it's worth saying. I don't really have a mentor. I don't think I've ever had one, and it's not that I didn't want a mentor or didn't, but I just never figured out how to find one, and it's not a precondition to any kind of success. So you shouldn't think that, oh, I've got to do this alone, or I don't really have a mentor. How am I going to do anything? It's nice, it's helpful, but it's not a precondition to success. So don't consider it a gate to doing something.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. I think vast majority of probably people are in a similar position. So I think it's just a really nice thing to have. And now that we have been introduced to the idea of a sponsor as well, then maybe we can think about finding those people that are willing to not only give us opportunities, but also advocate for us within our teams or within an industry. So thank you. And yes, Sailor, go ahead.
I would add here that a lot of times when people focus on finding a mentor, they can struggle and also maybe come off as not as genuine. But when you focus on building relationships with people where you just have common interests, they have experiences that maybe you're trying to get, those types of things, I think they make a really big difference in what will naturally develop, right? So if I go out looking for something, then maybe that could distract me from what's right in front of me if I just focus on being genuine and building a relationship. A lot of the mentees that I have and even the mentors that I have, I never formally said, hey, can you be my mentor? We just would have conversations and things evolved in a way that they eventually became that and played that role in my life. So I think focusing on building genuine relationships and just connecting to other humans is really, really helpful, because that's how the sponsors also come up as well. And that's how mine have come up. So sometimes you have to be explicit, but a lot of times you just be yourself and reach out to people and be genuine, and everything will flow in the way that it should.
Yeah, Thank you, Taylor. I love that. I know it can be really easy to think about this like fictional sort of future mentor that we can all get, when in reality we probably have a lot of people in our network, if not a person that we know directly, but someone that knows someone that can ultimately serve as, a guide, support, or in a sponsorship role in the future. Great, thank you all so much. So we have a few minutes left, and I want to open it up to any students or Enroot staff that have any questions. I know we have one student that asked a question. Amber, would you like to ask your question, or would you like me to? Well, I got the message from Amber. She's ready. So Amber asks, can a student without experience and knowledge about coding or STEM get an internship or job at Google?
Yes. Very simple answer. So one of the things we've talked about already is there are a lot of different roles at Google. So software engineer is obviously one of them. And to get an internship or a job as a software engineer, you do need some level of coding experience. It's often not very much. So we have internships that are offered to students who just finished their freshman year at college and only have that much programming experience. But outside of engineering, there are lots of other jobs. There are UX designers who build the web, like help. Okay, so as an engineer, I know how to build the web page, write the code that makes things display in your browser, but I have no idea how to make it look pretty, how to make it easy to use, how to make it actually a functional product. That's what UX designers do. There are also product managers whose job it is to kind of decide what a product needs to do, how it should do those things, what features to add, etc. And then there's also a whole host of sort of jobs that companies need around business. So we have salespeople, we have people in finance, we have people in HR. Google is a company. It's got a lot of different jobs, and not all of them involve coding, not all of them involve STEM, not all of them involve engineering. There are a lot of opportunities available.
Thank you, Alan. Any other questions from students or staff?
I can just add to the internship question specifically. Google has a whole internship program that's focused on non-technical student roles. So it's called the BOLD internship program. And so that allows students who are juniors in college, I believe, going into their senior year of college, to have a summer paid internship at Google. And it's in all of those fields that Alan was talking about, where you don't have to have science, engineering, math background, and they pay very well still. So that's one way to get into Google if you're not into coding or engineering that you could look into. And they have a program before that program also for freshmen in college. So I don't think any for high schoolers yet, but something to keep in mind as you progress. And that one is not paid, but it's a bold immersion week, and you get to spend a week at Google just learning about the different roles. So maybe if you're not sure what you would want to do, they will pay for you to be in the program and eat, sleep, all that stuff around a bunch of other students so that you can learn, and then maybe later you'll decide to apply to the internship program. So that's a completely free one, and then the other one is obviously a paid summer job. So
oh, that's great. Thank
I'll put
you.
them in the chat too, just so people know what.
Yeah, that'd be great. I found a link, but any other links? And thank you, Alan. I saw you sharing one of the links as well.
That's careers.google.com/students is the best link for what opportunities does Google have for students right now. It is a great link to save and check on because it'll always be the most up to date.
Awesome, thank you.
And beyond internships, Google also offers programs to high schoolers. So I'm familiar with like the technical one, it's called CSSI, but it's for high schoolers who have just graduated, and it would be the summer in between high school and college, or if you're going to college, where it's not an internship, but and you don't need any experience because it's more of a learning opportunity so that you could get familiarized with what a career in tech at Google might look like. And, you know, not just Google, but like I think Facebook and Microsoft, all the other companies also have programs for high schoolers. So if you're curious, it's definitely a good way to get exposed to what it's like at one of these companies.
Awesome. Thank you, Karine.
So as someone who doesn't work in an engineering role at Google, I think there is definitely benefit in having exposure and learning how to code. I say that because we work very closely with product, and there's a lot of things that we have to do that's related to that. And it's also the world we live in, I think, in a lot of ways, in terms of fundamental skills. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with what Taylor said. Like, there's a lot of opportunities here, really interesting ones in management and administrative, finance, that are not related to programming.
Thank you. That's a good reminder, Gigi. All right, great. Any final questions since we're on our last 5 minutes? All right. No other questions then. So with that, I would love to thank all of our panelists, Alan, Aaron, Titan, Karine, Taylor, Chichi. Thank you so much for joining us today for this 1 hour to spread your wisdom to our students, but also to Google for being our primary sponsor for Enroot's Career Week. We are so happy to have built this connection with you, and I'm sure our students gained a ton of, I know I did, but I'm sure our students gained a lot from your wisdom and your shared experiences. So thank you so much for joining us. And to our students at Enroot, remember that this is now also part of your network. So I encourage you to find our friends at Google on LinkedIn, add them, tell them that you saw them at the Enroot panel. And I'm sure they'll be very happy to be your mentors or sponsors maybe in the future. So thank you so much to our friends at Google. And thank you to Enroot students for joining us today. Thank you all. I'll stay back if there's any final questions, but thank you so much.
I see one more question in here. What is your favorite thing to do at your job?
Let's see. Oh, yes, from Amber. Oh, I didn't see that one. Would you like to answer that one, Gigi?
I think everyone should answer this one.
Okay, great. Whoever's left here. Yes, I think that everyone's here.
So I was always the kid in school who would, you know, when someone tells you can't do something, I would do the thing I wasn't allowed to do. So Google, there's a lot of that. Like, there are really some things that we really are trying to figure out. And in news, you can imagine there are a lot of complicated questions around what kind of news should people see, and when and where and how. And that's my favorite part of my job, is doing the thing that no one knows how to do and trying to work through that and figuring it out. And so that's a lot of fun. That's what keeps me here.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Chichi. Anyone else?
I'd say for me, my favorite part is getting to connect with colleagues. The people that I work with are just across the board really great people, and getting to interact with them day to day. Now in person, now that things are opening back up, but getting to interact with them day to day, like that's the best part of my job. That's the best part of my day.
Thank you. some last few sentences. This is like our bonus session, our encore. Alrighty then. Well, thank you all so much again. I'll stay back, but again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Bye. Bye, Aaron. Thank you for asking awesome questions, Amber. Oh, Amber left.